All right, welcome to Ponce Church this morning. All right, you ever met a dingbat? You know what that is?
That's pretty funny.
Did you? How many came to church with a dingbat today? You know, you never know. But actually, after you hear me talk for a half hour this morning, you might think you just listened to a dingbat. But anyway, the dictionary says a dingbat is a typeface symbol. So it's there are symbols, and they call them, for lack of a better word, dingbat. But then it also goes on to say it's kind of a stupid or a silly person, you know. And sadly, when you Google the word dingbat, this little guy comes up in his little bat costume there. I don't think that's why you want to be on the first page of Google, but anyway, that's what pops up, you know.
Wow.
But, you know, as a silly person, somebody possibly even, you know, delusional or not quite all there. And when you're in the religious world, like I've been for so many years of my life, and especially as a pastor for 20 plus years of my life, a lot of times you meet a lot of people that might fall into that category, and most of them they come to you like this, and you know, pretty much all my pastor friends would agree with this, and it happens maybe more often than we'd like it to, but I have a message from God. That's what people say. I have a message from God, and I always take that with a grain of salt. You know, I have a message from God, and very few of them seem to be correct as far as I'm concerned. However, the problem with so many dingbats is that when a true prophet comes along, generally speaking, because he says, hey, I have a message from God, and he gets just lumped in with all the dingbats. Because most people who say, oh, I have a message from God, I wouldn't give them 2 cents of my time. Jesus experienced this. Remember when he went to Nazareth? He went to Nazareth, and he said, among other things, he said, I know you guys are going to reject me as being a false prophet. You're going to reject me. You're not going to think I'm a true prophet. And he said, but you never have thought that, he was telling this to his hometown, he said, but you've rejected all the true prophets. And you can read this in Luke 4, I'm not going to take the time today, but you can find out that they were so furious with him. See, they had already lumped him with all the dingbats, all the ones saying they had a message from God. And they were so furious with him, who remembers what they tried to do? Throw him off a cliff. They literally tried to throw Jesus off a cliff. They were sure he was a dingbat, a false prophet. So it is with that background and with great reservation, I tell you this morning that I have a message from God. And of course, the first reaction is, he's a dingbat. A message from God. Well, God gave me a specific message. Not only just a message from God, a specific message. And today we're going to talk about a message for the American church. Specifically for the American church. It's also for the American Christian, but today we're going to talk about the American church. And we're going to see that Jesus had a message to a church in the book of Revelation. He had 7 messages, and he sent 7 messages to the 7 churches in the book of Revelation. You can read about them in the first 3 chapters. Well, the last one mentioned is Revelation 3:14, and it says Jesus is speaking to the angel, to the messenger that's going to take this message to the church, and he says, write this letter to the angel of the church, or the messenger, some translations say, the angel of the church in Laodicea. This is the message from the one who is the Amen, the faithful and true witness, the beginning of God's new creation. So here we have Jesus sending a message to this church. And he goes on and he says, I know all the things you do, that you are neither hot nor cold. I wish that you were one or the other, but since you are like lukewarm water, neither hot nor cold, I'll spit you out of my mouth. You say, now notice it's a message to a church, a specific church. You say, I am rich, I have everything I want, I don't need a thing, and you don't realize that you're wretched and miserable and poor and blind and naked. I correct and discipline everyone I love, so be diligent and turn from your indifference. Notice he has a message to a specific church. Look, he goes on, I stand at the door and knock. If you'll hear my voice and open the door, I'll come in, and we will share a meal together as friends. Those who are victorious will sit with me on my throne, just as I was victorious and sat with my Father on his throne. Anyone with ears to hear must listen to the Spirit and understand what he's saying to the churches. So Jesus said, I have a message. I have a message to what I'm going to call the church in Laodicea, the church who had been given much. Now, the message to the church who has been given much is different than the message to the church who has nothing. In other words, the message sent to a church in Haiti, or a church in a small village in Africa, or a church, the underground church in China, would be a different message than the church sent to, or the message sent to the church in America. That would be completely a different message. Yes. A church who has been given much. And so he's saying the church that had been given much didn't realize what it had, or what it had been given, or why. And he says, you must listen to the message. So just based on those scriptures let's answer those questions. How many would say that Jesus loves us? Didn't he say he loved us there? I love you. He says, man, I love you. That's why I'm sending you a message. I love you. You're not hearing something. You're not picking up on something. And I love you so much, I'm going to send a message to you. And he loves us enough to warn us and to send messengers. And specifically the church of Laodicea, he's sending a message to those who have been given much. And of course, if you just look at the history of the world, the church in America has been given more than any other church in any generation or in any other country. Church who has been given much. So I stand here and I say, I have a message from God for the American church. Everybody say, why you?
Why you?
I have no idea. I really don't. I have no idea. I have a guess, but I have no idea. I do know that we now at least have 2 recorded instances of God speaking through donkeys. One was Balaam and his donkey, and the second one's me. So now we have at least 2 experiences of that. You know, I envision this because I've asked God this, what did you do this to me for? And I envision it this way, that, God looks over at Jesus and says, who's the most stubborn guy we got down there? That's what I think. Who's the most stubborn? And Jesus is like, oh, that's easy. It's that Rick guy in Ponce Inlet. Send the message to him. He says, because this job is going to require just real stubbornness in the face of rejection, You just got to be stubborn about it. He says, oh, yeah, send it to that guy. So I have a message for the church in America. So what's the big message? Let's all say that together. What's the big message? All right, get ready. Hold on to your seats. Here it is, because you can't, sometimes when you hear God's voice, it sounds like thunder. This is going to sound like thunder. It's going to make no real tangible sense. But let me start here and let's talk about it. Here's the message. Here's the simple message God gave me. 100% of the people's 10th is for the poor. Now, I'm not going to talk about the 10th today. That's kind of a whole message in itself outside of doing a demonstration. But what I'm going to talk about is the church today. And what I'm telling you is the message to the church is 100% of the people's 10th is for the poor. Everybody say poor. Poor. It's for the poor. Now, this is very important because when I say it's for the poor, I'm not saying it's for Jesus. Now listen, that's a big difference. We have three kids hey kids, come up here. I need to give you some coins. Come on up. You were answering my prayer today. I said, God, I need some kids. There's 10 for you. Now hold on to those. Hold on, there might be 9 there. This is very important. Everybody stay with me.
Amen.
Okay, 10, 10, and 10. Now, hold on just there. All right, so I just want to explain this demonstration of what I'm trying to talk about. All right, let's say our 3 girls here made $100 this week. They sold some lemonade, $10 a glass. They sold some lemonade. And you ever see that sign in the Beverly Hills Kids, Beverly Hills, California? Lemonade, $10 a glass, you know. Anyway, so let's say they all made $100. Now they're going to each give me one of those coins, which they each have 10 coins. There's 10, 20, and 30. All right, you can sit down. You can take your coins with you. They're rich. Have Donna go buy some ice cream with those coins. All right. So our 3 girls increased, earned, profited, somehow received $100 this week. And they each brought their 10th to the church. So now the church has 30. 3 coins, let's say it's $30. Now, who does 100% of this 10th go to? The poor. Nina's going to be my poor today. How much of it goes to the poor?
All of it.
100% goes to the poor. 100% of that first 10th has always been designated for the poor. The priest, the widow, the fatherless, and the poor stranger. It's always been designated for the poor. 100% of it. Now this seems insignificant, and it doesn't seem that important, and I've taught it for 20 years now. But it's not for Jesus. I wish we could just read the scriptures. It's not for Jesus. It's not for his glory, or his ministry, or his work, or his house. It's for who? It's for the poor. It's always been for the poor. And what do we do with it? We build blocks. Beautiful blocks for Jesus. You know what the reality says? The reality says that when this $30 comes in, I give her 60 cents. Just to look good, feel good about myself. And I keep the rest for this. For the ministry of Jesus. For Jesus. But it was always for the poor. It's always supposed to be for the poor. Now, that doesn't seem like much, you know, big deal, $30. Let me give you an example. We use it for this, and I'm just asking you, who told us to make blocks out of it? Who possibly told us to make blocks out of the 10th that came to the church? Who told us that? Who's it for? Who are, you know, in our minds, who is this beautiful, you know, building block? Who is that for? Who do we think it's for?
We think it's for Jesus.
We think it's for Jesus, right? We're all doing this for Jesus. We love Jesus. We love him. We're doing it for him. Let me show you what that's like. I have 2 boys. Let's say on my next birthday, my boys want to show how much they love me, and they get me a $10,000 Rolex watch. They see it on the Apple Watch. So they get me a $10,000 Rolex watch. Now, look at me. Some of you have known me for 15 years. Have you ever seen me even wear jewelry of any kind except for this in 15 years? You've known me for how long? Have you ever seen me? 33 years we've been married.
Yep.
Have you ever seen me wear jewelry except for you had to wear a watch before there were phones, right? You had to have a
Back
watch.
in the day.
And even then it was a leather
Yeah.
band,
Yeah, about 20 bucks.
if that.
If that.
So if my boys, who are supposed to know me and have my heart, if they say, we want to really show Dad we love him, we want to really honor him and get him a $10,000 Rolex watch, what am I going to think about that? What am I going to think about it? You know what I'm going to think about? I'll tell you what I'm going to think about. They don't even know me. They don't even have a clue as to who I am. My own children, they have no idea who I am. They're getting me gold blocks. Now, for those of you who know me, what if they came to me and said, Dad, in your name, we donated $10,000 to orphans
Yes, we'd be jumping up and down.
or to the homeless,
Yep.
to a cause that's dear to your heart?
Yes.
Now what's my response?
Tone would say.
They know me.
Yeah.
They know who I am.
Mhm.
They're my boys.
Mhm.
And we do that with Jesus.
That's a good point.
We do it with Jesus. We bring him these gold blocks, these beautiful blocks. Oh, Jesus, this is all for you. And it's like bringing me a $10,000. You know what I do with a $10,000 gold Rolex watch? Let's go in the pawn shop today.
Yes. To help the poor.
If they're open on Sunday.
Yeah.
100% of the first tenth is for the poor. It's always been that way. Now again, we're talking about $30, no big deal, minor offense, but let's extrapolate this out in the church in America. Let's just say there's 120 million Christians, 300 million people here. Let's say there's about 120 million, let's even just say maybe about a third, but just for the sake of numbers today, 120 million Christians, let's say there's about 40 million households that claim to be Christians in America. 40 million households. The average household income in America is $48,000. I'm going to bump that to 50 just for math. It's just easier. So let's say there's 40 million households averaging $50,000 a year annual income. A first tenth of that household's blessing is $5,000, and 100% of that is to go where?
Poor.
100%. Now, you tell me if this is a minor offense or not. Folks, that simple math equals out to $200 billion a year that has been designated by God for the poor. Do you know that we could take every homeless person and feed them for $15 billion? We could take every homeless person and feed them off the street, every single one of them, and feed them for a whole year, $15 billion, and we'd still have $185 billion left over
And house all the
for
orphans.
other poor causes.
And all the age-odd foster kids.
You want to preach the rest of my sermon?
Just add.
When it's $30, no big deal. I'm talking about $200 billion a year.
Yes.
I've been a Christian for 45 years of my life. That's $9 trillion have came in that was supposed to be for the poor.
Wow.
Even if you drop it down to just 30 people or 30 in a small church, let's say, that's still $156,000 a year. I don't know about you, but you can do a lot with $156,000 in a local area from one small church.
Yeah.
So you tell me if this is a minor offense or a heinous crime that's taken place. So let's ask ourselves, remember the church in Laodicea? They didn't realize it. And Jesus said, you must listen. Church that has been given much, you must listen. Does he love us? Yes. That's not the issue. Will he warn us? Yes, 1,000 times yes. Will he send messenger to us? Yes. To whom? Those who have been given much. The church in America. There's a message to the church in America from Jesus. 100% of people's tenth is for the poor. So he says, why didn't he just tell us, right? I mean, why didn't he just flat out tell us? Listen, here's my answer. He is. He does. He has been for thousands of years. We've written 2 books about the subject. I've researched it for 20 years. That's like saying, remember what God told Adam? Don't eat that tree. That was clear and simple, right? No problem there. Don't eat the tree. 100% of the tenth is for the poor. That's clear and simple. One statement's not easier to understand than another. Very easy. Until another voice enters. Another voice enters. Yeah. And all of a sudden they can't see nothing. Then they look at that apple, that given much stuff, that increase, and next thing you know, we're mesmerized. We can't see anything except the apple. And we can't hear it anymore. Completely consumed with the apple. Can't hear the simple instruction. Jesus said, as in the days of Noah, they didn't have a clue what God was trying to say to them. As in the days of Noah, so will the coming of the Son of Man be. A lot of people will not even have a clue of what the Spirit of God is saying to the church. They won't even have a clue. And I'm telling you what he's saying today. 100% of the first tenth is for the poor. That's what he's saying. And that little idea is revolutionary. It'll turn that completely upside down, because that's run on the exact opposite system. The gold blocks have to be maintained once you build them. Same thing on Judgment Day. You can read it in Matthew 25, the sheep and the goats. The goats had no clue. They had no clue. Jesus, we had no idea this was so important to you. We did not know it. This is what was important to us. Jesus said, no, that was me. This wasn't me. He said, that was me. That was me. I was hungry. I was thirsty. That was me. We didn't have a clue that was you. We thought this was you. The voices told us this was you. Does God love us? Yes. Enough to send a messenger to us? Yes. Now, this is important, because I think a lot of people think they've got some kind of get-out-of-jail-free card. And that's wonderful to get a get-out-of-jail-free card, but let's just see this first. Now, and see it in natural law. According to the law, and just think with me, according to the law, if you're a good person that chronically commits theft, stealing and robbing and pillaging, is the law going to treat you the same as a mean, evil person that also steals and robs and pillages? Not, no? Well, the law will. Isn't that right? The judge doesn't care whether you're a nice guy or a mean guy.
That's right.
Did you break the law, nice guy? If you broke the law, your niceness might get you a little somewhere.
Yeah.
But if you just keep coming up before the judge, he's going to start thinking, well, you're not really as nice as you appear to be. Because you keep robbing and stealing. And somehow we think, well, if I'm just a good person, I can rob and steal and I'll get out of jail free. We know some folks that that's just not true for, right? They're in jail. They're nice folks. Aren't they? The ones I've met there. They're nice folks. Good guys. We know a young guy. He's as nice a guy as you'd ever want to meet. And in my heart, a good person. He's had a rough life. He's a young guy. He's already had a rough life. He's a good guy. We love him. And he finally got into a drug rehab, a one-year program. Finally got into a drug rehab. And we're really happy for this. Well, the night before he's supposed to go in, at least the next day he's supposed to go in, I assume, I hadn't talked to him personally about this, but I assume he just wanted to get one last night of partying in because he was coming home just before dawn, walking down the street in a decent neighborhood. Guy's garage was open, went in and grabbed one of his yard tools. I don't even know which one. Well, another neighbor, a lot of old people get up there in the mornings, early in the morning. Well, another neighbor saw him go into this neighbor's garage, take this stuff out. So by the time he got home, the police were there. You're not supposed to take stuff. Not only that, you're already on probation. You're a felon. You're already on probation, and you're not supposed to be doing drugs or taking stuff. And I'm telling you, folks, as flat as I can tell you, he's the nicest kid you ever want to meet, and I have nothing but love and mercy for him. But the law is different. Isn't that right? The law says, here you go, you broke the law again. Well, in this particular story, and this just happened recently, in this particular story, the cop was telling the homeowner who lost the stuff but got, recovered, he was telling the homeowner that, he's going to rehab tomorrow. And this is what the homeowner said. He said, my son finally went to rehab after years of pain and struggle in our family and got straightened out.
Yes.
He goes, I'm not pressing charges. I'm giving this kid another chance. Now talk about a message from God. That's a message from God, right? I mean, he was done. He was done for. Caught red-handed. A repeat felon. But my point is there any difference? Did it make any difference if he was the nicest kid on the block who was robbing and stealing repeatedly, or if he was just a mean old, terrible person? According to the law, they're counted the same. I'm trying to tell that to the American church. We're counted as thieves and robbers if we keep acting like thieves and robbers. That scares me. Because I know the law. Jesus is a king. He's a righteous king and judge. And he says, I'm coming back. Yeah, there's mercy today. But there's a judgment day coming. I call this God, we're winding this down now, thanks for staying with me. I call this God's universal system of justice. 100% of the people's tenth is for the poor. The priest, the widow, the fatherless, the poor stranger. I call it God's universal system of justice because it originated way before Moses with Abraham, who's in the book of Genesis, almost at the very beginning here we're talking. Abraham gave a tenth to the priest Melchizedek. The only thing we know about Melchizedek is he had no beginning and end, and then the writer of Hebrews says that Jesus is after the order, he's a priest the same as Melchizedek. After the order of Melchizedek. In other words, Jesus is a high priest just like this Melchizedek guy. And all we know about Melchizedek is he received a tenth from Abraham. Moses recorded this understanding of the tenth, and he said, now the tenth is for the priest, the widow, the fatherless, and the poor stranger. Jesus came along and he practiced this philosophy of 100% of the tenth of people's tithe went to the poor. He practiced it and preached it. And then the church, the New Testament church after resurrection, modeled it. So let's look at the church model real quick. And like I say, actually the main thing has a lot of this about it. You can also order The Right Thing online at Amazon. Both of those books cover this in detail. But let's just look at this one reference here. Acts 2:42 talking about the New Testament church. All the believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, and to fellowship, and to sharing in meals, including the Lord's Supper, and to prayer, and a deep sense of awe came over them all, and the apostles performed many miraculous signs and wonders, and all the believers met together in one place and shared everything they had. Then he goes on, they sold their property and possessions and shared the money with those in need. Does that sound like what we've been talking about?
Yes.
They shared the money and turned it into gold blocks. Is that what it says? They shared the money with those in need. The New Testament church. This is New Testament. It's the only example we have of the New Testament church. They worshiped together at the temple and each day met in homes for the Lord's Supper and shared their meals with great joy and generosity, all the while praising God and enjoying the goodwill of all the people. And each day the Lord added to their fellowship those who were being saved. So real quickly, what's the only use, I'm going to give you a hint. What's the only use of money mentioned in that church? Given to the poor. That's the only use mentioned. In the New Testament, in the book of Acts, in the Gospels, the book of Acts, or the writings of Paul, you will never find not once where it's used for golden blocks. Not one time ever. As a matter of fact, Paul's ministry today wouldn't be considered, he'd be considered a failure.
Yeah.
He ended his whole life, he had no buildings, he had no property, he had nothing. Except he said in Acts chapter 20, maybe we'll read it next week, he said, I've given you an example to follow. Work hard and help the poor. That's what he said. You don't see it in the New Testament nowhere. There's no gold watches for Jesus, no beautiful blocks for Jesus. It's not there. It never has been there. It never will be there. It's just like my boys buying it for me. They don't know me if they try and give me that stuff. Jesus said to the church of Laodicea, the church that had been given much, they don't realize they must listen to the messenger. Does he love us? Yes. Enough to warn us, send the messenger? Yes. And especially to those who have been given much. And the message is so simple. 100% of the 10 goes to the poor. So simple. All right, let me get down to, as you can see, I got about 3 sermons here. What should we do? There we are. What should we do? All I know, the message was for the church today. All I know is if you have a voice in the church today, start teaching the truth. You'll probably get thrown off the cliff pretty soon, but start teaching the truth. And if you're going to one of these churches today, stop supporting it. Don't become a part of stealing and robbing the poor. Do not support it. It's not right. we're stealing $200 billion a year from the poor, and we're supporting it. I have great love and mercy for all people in my position. And I tell you, you start preaching the truth, you're going to get thrown off the cliff. I'm just telling you that right now. Jesus said, you can't really put new wine into old wineskins. It's going to mess everything up. And trust me, folks, this is a completely different system than this right here.
Yes.
See, this system gives that guy 60 cents. That's all they get. It will turn it upside down. If you start preaching this, you're going to have to do what I did. You're just going to have to go to your own. The church rejected me. They flat out rejected me. At first, I came to the church and I said, I have a message from God. My pastor said, oh, I believe you. Why don't you preach? And I preached on a Wednesday night. Big church, about 100 people on a Wednesday night even. And I got done. He said, why don't you preach it next Wednesday? I said, okay. And I got done. And he said, why don't you preach next Wednesday? I'm like, I can do this all year if you want me to. This was 20 years ago. And after that third week, it was off the cliff with you. What you're saying is going to upset this. And we can't have it. So my suggestion is preach the truth. Whatever happens, happens. You might have to restart. But restart on a real foundation of 100% of the first tenth. Now, if you want an additional offering to build a building or a tabernacle, wonderful. That's a whole separate thing. I'm talking about the first tenth. It's for the poor. And build on that foundation. The priest has a right to it. The fatherless, the widow, and the poor stranger. That's the message from God. 100% of the tenth is for the poor. Amen?
Before you close.
Amen. Before I close.
Yeah. I wanted to just share real quick. The story he shared about the church that we attended, I won't say the name because we're Facebook Live, but anyways, after he had preached, it was one or two of those Wednesdays, a woman came up to me and she was so excited. She had brought her husband to church. He didn't go to church. He just didn't go to church. And he heard Rick's message. And she said he gave for the first time because of what he taught. He didn't want it going to a religious organization. He wanted it to go to helping people. Anyways, I just remember this woman. I don't remember her name, but I just thought that was a great story.
All right. You want to
Yep.
get us off of Facebook?
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Yeah.
I will thank everybody.
Okay, you say goodbye.
Thanks for joining us today.